Hello and welcome to another Cloud Podcast, a podcast designed to bring you stories from the smartest minds in IT, operations, and business, and learn how they're using cloud technology to improve business and the customer experience. All right, well, welcome to another Cloud Podcast. We are so excited today to again have Mary Poppen on our podcast. Mary is the Chief Strategy and Customer Officer over at Involve.ai. Mary, welcome to the program. Thanks for coming on.
Thanks, Alex. And hi, Aarde.
Yeah, how's it going? Mary, thanks for joining. I know Alex said again, because we had a little snafu. We recorded one of these podcast episodes, lost the file, so we're re-recording it, but this time it's better because we're closer to the end of the year and we've got some cool topics to cover today. Mary, pleasure as always. Alex, pleasure as always as well. Looking forward to the conversation today. And for all of you guys watching, we're recording this at the end of 2021. You'll probably be watching it in 2022 because that's when we're going to post it. So you'll tell us in the comments if we hit our predictions right for next year.
That's right. That's right. Well, Mary, why don't you take a couple minutes and just give people a background about what you do over at Involve, how you got started in this customer success and experience journey, and how you got where you're at today.
Perfect. Yeah. Thank you. Thanks for having me again. It's great to see you guys. It's the end of the year. So this is fantastic. We have celebrations coming up, right? Mm-hmm. So I have spent my entire career focused on customers, starting in consulting and working my way into technology. If you'd asked me in graduate school, I have a degree in IO psychology, if I would ever be working for a software company, my answer would have been, no, I'm not going to be in the tech space. Mm-hmm. But ironically, that's where I've spent the majority of my career. And it's been really interesting because I've been able to see the shift from the old kind of on-premise traditional software delivery with customers to moving to SaaS, which, several years ago was is this, you want me to put my data where? And just the whole mentality shift of, not having to have just IT, for example, make the decision on all of the technology, but putting everything in the hands of the business owners and allowing them the flexibility to choose solutions that are going to be best for them. But what that meant is the entire delivery model of, from going from building houses to renting apartments had to shift. And nobody was watching how the customer was doing after implementation, because historically you didn't have to. They were in sort of maintenance mode. But with SaaS and the innovation that's possible, customers really needed somebody to get in and talk about the value that they're getting and resell the value every day. Because if you don't like your landlord, you can up and move to a new apartment fairly easily, right? And so it's been really fun to see the rise of the customer being put at the center instead of your product, being at the center of the universe. And so that's where I've spent the majority of my time trying to figure out how to make the customer experience better, how to help customers be more successful with whatever products or services you might be offering. And so it's been a really fun journey. And now I'm at Involve.ai. We are focused on customer intelligence. So it's looking at the holistic view of customer behavior, customer voice, wherever that data might be, pulling that story together and being able to generate the insights of, what are the really key levers that are driving a successful customer versus those, that tend to be contributing to your customers leaving. And so it's a really exciting time for us. It's an exciting space and an opportunity to really leverage AI in the post-sale world.
And I have to bring up your name because everyone's going to look at this and say, is this a real person? Because the first time we met, much like most business colleagues, is through LinkedIn. So you don't really know if it's a real person. It might be a bot or an automation or someone who created a fake profile. And you used to work at LinkedIn. So a little bit of a connection there. But tell us a little bit about the origin of your name. I know the backstory, but tell the viewers a little bit, because you have one of the coolest, most unique names And every time I hear it, it brings a smile to my face because it reminds me of childhood.
Yeah, well, thank you for raising that. I always tell my husband, like, this was such a, a great marriage because people just remember my name. And so since I'm in like technology and like dealing with customers, people remember your name. And so thankfully it's got a positive connotation. But I'm married into the name 23 years ago already, believe it or not. So sort of like born married. And I did not grow up with the name, but that's how I got it. So it's pretty fun. I love the
It was meant to be. It was meant to be.
It was meant to be. Yeah. Although I had done some work with Disney, and of course I had to kick off the meeting by saying I met Prince Charming, and then it turned into,
gotta pour into that. That's perfect.
Right.
Well, I love how you said, it around customer experience and the name and all that kind of, just brings a smile to everyone's face. But talk a little bit about, you're an author, speaker, and I know we talked, a lot about employee experience as well as customer experience, but how do you see that changing? And as we're looking towards 2022, employee experience seems to be gaining a lot more momentum in our circles. But for those that are like, I'm just learning customer experience, now you're talking about employee experience being the next thing. Like, go talk a little bit about where you see those two things moving and the trend lines in that.
Yeah, there's so much synergy between customer engagement and employee engagement and the levers that drive each. Some of them are different, but organizations that put a priority focus on people first, which can relate to employees and customers, are the ones I would argue are the most successful, right? At differentiating themselves, getting the best talent, keeping customers happy. And there is this, I love to talk about this contagious enthusiasm that exists in a company that hires people that believe in their mission, believe in what they do, have the freedom to really like leverage their potential and leverage their skills to help customers like reach their potential, right? And be successful. And you guys probably have experienced when you go into an organization that just has a great culture. I always talk about In-N-Out Burger because it's almost dinner time, and I love it. But people are always happy. The employees are happy, the customers are happy. And every single time I've gone, it doesn't matter time of day, even at like 1 a.m, right? People are just happy. There is this contagious enthusiasm. And so I like to use that as a reference. But the energy is palpable, right? Whereas if you go into another organization that sort of has to exist and the employees don't necessarily love their job and whatever, the customers have to be there. It's a very different feeling, right? It's almost like you can't wait to hurry up and get done what you need to do. I'm sort of referencing the DMV, by the way. And you can't wait to like get out because it's just not a high energy place, right? And so this contagious enthusiasm is ultimately where, if every organization could be there, it'd be great. But their employees are super happy, their customers are super happy, business is doing phenomenal. So there is a linkage for sure.
Yeah, I want to drill into that a little bit more. So employee engagement is super critical, especially now that we're still in the pandemic. I don't know if it's post-pandemic or the new norm. I don't know what you want to call it, but you've got people who have been working from home that have been working really hard to support their business, and they're getting a little burnt out. They're getting frustrated. They feel like they're not being supported. They're not really engaged with either the company or the brand. And there's lots of different factors. One key factor is they're working from home. They don't have the ability to turn to their neighbor and ask a question. They kind of feel like they're an isolated island. And some other factors are they don't want to have to go back into the office. They love the comfort of being able to, cook some food, come back, do some work, and then go eat your lunch or fold some laundry while you're on a phone call. Like those are all cool little perks that we've come accustomed to. So as we go into 2022 and beyond, do you see any trends, whether it's companies creating programs that are more engaging for employees or maybe leaning into more of it's okay, you can work from home, you can work from anywhere because you've done it for the last 2 years and we're still a company and we're still thriving. Like, what are your thoughts about the future of this?
I think the theme is flexibility. And employees, to your point, are really appreciating the flexibility to be able to work, whether it's around people in an office or to be at home, or even better, like a hybrid of the two for the people that sort of want both worlds, right? And I think the organizations that are offering the flexibility to be able to come together in some capacity and or stay home and meet your needs in a way that, is fulfilling to you, but allows you to also like fully leverage your potential and reach your results, that's a win-win. I think the challenge is those roles that are difficult, to do from home all the time, or the individuals who aren't necessarily self-starters or get distracted easily, have trouble reaching the outcomes or the goals, and that's where I feel like organizations are going to have to step in and figure out, what are the right guidelines for those individuals. So I think we're going to see a lot of flexibility. I think we're going to see companies offering things that just no longer fit some of the talent that they have in the organization. So there's going to be more movement, the great resignation, right? People moving around and just finding their new fulfilling place.
It's funny you brought up great resignation. I was going to bring that up. So you read my mind, and we were on a podcast earlier where Aarde and I were talking about that, and just, what's driving it? What are companies doing to, combat it? What do you see the successful ones doing, the not so successful ones doing? How do you see that playing out over the next year? And what are you seeing companies do to do it right and to kind of not be affected by it?
Yeah, it's really interesting. I think people are just in general taking a step back and sort of taking, a view of what does matter to me. And when they look at what matters to them most, their current like work setup or work environment or travel schedule or whatever it might be isn't aligned to what's really important, right? So a lot of people maybe are looking at ways to stay closer to home, or, maybe there hasn't been that fire to try something new. Maybe they've had an interest in trying a new industry or a new job, but never sort of had the reason, to actually make the jump. And with COVID and everything, it's given people an opportunity to say, am I happy? Is this meaningful? And maybe it's time I do try something new. And so I think we're seeing a lot of that, and just people trying to find the right fit in the new normal. I do think that will continue. I think there's always been this war for talent for the last, many, many years, for really strong organizations with strong brands, like wanting to continue to get the best talent, right? So I think that's going to continue, and employees have opportunities, especially working from home. There's way more opportunities now for types of jobs or companies that allow working from home that didn't before, so you have an opportunity to try it out, which you may not have very easily before.
I read a article yesterday talking about how over the last 2 years we've been so socially, they called it socially muted. So it's not necessarily socially distanced, but we've been muted from the thousands of people we would normally meet in person down to maybe hundreds within a year, which is culturally changing the way that we think as consumers, in that we may want to do self-service versus actually talk to people.
I was thinking about
lost your voice already.
Oh, there you go.
Oh,
Should be good. So I was wondering what your guys' thoughts are on, maybe consumers not necessarily wanting to meet with someone in person or on a phone call or chat. Are there tools out there today? Is that where the customer service trends are going?
So I think it's really funny you asked that because I literally had a Zoom doctor meeting that I had never had before. And I thought, well, this is going to be kind of weird, right? But it actually was super smooth. And I thought, I just saved, an hour and a half, not having to get ready, get in the car, drive to the doctor, wait in the waiting room, come back. And I thought, wow, that is something that COVID actually impacted to me in a positive way, because there's a lot of opportunities where you can meet. I'm using the doctor as as an example, but it applies to other, types of opportunities too. But it's just a time saver where in the past it was an inconvenience, right? So I think those opportunities have been fantastic. And self-serve, I think, applies similarly. If you have an opportunity to do things that banking, I think, is another great example. You can do so much more, just remotely than you could ever do before. Yeah. It's getting rid of the inconvenience. But what I would say is the social aspect, I think, is still really strong in people. So I've noticed being able to get back to conferences and hug people, that physically be present together, is still important and does still have an impact. I just think it's not as required or as often as it used to be before.
Yeah, we saw a big influx of people at events this fall, right? Everyone was they couldn't wait to get out there and start traveling again, at least on the sales side, consulting people. The extroverts were just chomping at the bit to jump out there into the world and start going to conferences again. But, and we'll see how it seems, next year, who knows how it'll be the first part of 2022 with Omicron and things just going on like that. And it just seems to be, the flexibility, like you mentioned earlier, that seems to be the key with organizations, is that they have to have the ability to be flexible in what they're doing. And the ones that have the hard stance, yes or no, black and white, are the ones that are going to be harder to retain those employees, that good talent. They're going to go somewhere else. And I think that's that's going to be a key moving into next year from what we see.
Yeah, let's dig a little bit into the customer experience side of the house. Let's talk about KPIs. So I know a couple decades back or a couple years ago, there was new ones like NPS and CSAT, and just ways to measure the success of your organization, your customer experience organization. Now we've got these really cool AI tools that can do speech analytics, conversational analytics, sentiment analysis, all these automatic dispositions and scores. And what are you guys using today? And or what do you think the future is of the KPI world for contact centers and customer experience? Is it going to change, or is it just using AI to give us some better insight?
So I think that we have relied on measurements that we could get our hands on, right? Or that we could capture. And I think we've over-indexed on some of those. So for example, an NPS score that everybody has sort of, glommed onto, if you will, net promoter score is something executives understand. And so building that into the bonus model, and one of the top 5 objectives of the company is to increase NPS by 10 points or whatever the case may be, right? And sort of leaving out the rest of the picture. So that's only one piece of the puzzle. And I think what we're going to see going forward, what I'm really excited about and what Involve is focused on in terms of customer intelligence, is that AI is able to, within seconds, go through, millions of pieces of data across multiple channels and be able to pull out key insights or key behaviors of customers or voice from sentiment that you would have to have a data scientist dig for months to potentially find. And now we're able to uncover these things that we didn't necessarily measure, either because we couldn't easily measure it or because we just didn't know that it was a key indicator of success. And so with AI being able to look across and tell you what's important, I think that's really exciting. And I think that's only going to get better.
where do you see, you talk about these different data points and, the data scientists, right, that could be used to create all these great reports and KPIs. Do you see new ones coming out from this, or ones where people are steering away from NPS or steering away from CSAT and going, we're going to create more of a health score, or we're going to kind of merge like 3 or 4 of these into like their own sort of CSAT or NPS?
Yeah, I mean, that's been happening. Everyone's been trying to kind of figure out what is the magic puzzle that tells the best customer health story, right? And it is kind of a guess, and how those measures should be viewed in light of your business does vary too. For example, a high number of support tickets can actually be a good thing for your organization or your product because it could indicate adoption. Whereas anecdotally, you think, oh, high volume support tickets is a horrible thing. Mm-hmm. So it's really being able to look at your business, look at the complexity of your products or services, look at the maturity of your customers, start to break out your customers, not necessarily on just segmentation of sales segmentation, right? Enterprise, mid-market, so often, not to get off on a tangent, but so often it's the sales segmentation is the ultimate, guide to how you're going to deliver for those customers. And so you've got enterprise delivery and mid-market, whatever. But the reality is there's a lot of mid-market customers that are more complex than some of the enterprise customers, right? Or some that are ready for self-serve and some that aren't. And so if you're looking at them only in terms of like one view and not letting the data sort of tell you where to look, you're potentially focusing on the wrong behaviors and wrong follow-up action for those customers to help them be successful. So it's been a guessing game historically to like say this is what makes a healthy customer versus this, measure. And that's where the data is coming in and being able to, if you don't have data scientists, which many companies don't, right? Many leaders don't, the technology is sort of doing all the heavy lifting of telling you these key insights. But even if you did have data scientists, I think the question is, would they even know what to be looking for in terms of relationships, right? And that's where, again, the data finds these relationships that you would never even have thought of.
Mm-hmm.
What are the 1 to 2 things you would advise maybe a new executive in the customer service world? What are the 1 to 2 things you would advise them to try to do in 2022? What's the low-hanging fruit? Where should they spend their time and energy and focus? Because there's so many things that executives and leaders can focus on that are not the right things. So what would you advise if I was a new leader?
Yeah, I mean, I believe that looking at the customer journey and defining the customer journey not in terms of your view of what it should be, but in terms of the actual customer experience, and then turning that into the roles and responsibilities in the organization and laying it out very clearly and defining the handoffs is super important to creating that reliable, consistent customer experience. And again, it's that outside-in view that I think is forgotten a lot. But a lot of people hear, oh, customer journey, da, da, da. But if you don't have like a foundation to start from, it's really hard for people to get aligned and to understand, I think, that the impact, right? And for you to find the gaps and make improvements. So I do really feel like that should be the starting point. I also feel like one of the things that's forgotten about or left until later is measurement. And so measurement across that journey, finding the right KPIs that actually tell you what successful looks like or not. And I think the reason so often it's kept for later is it's challenging. It is hard to figure out, all the right measures and to get resources in place to do the measurement. But what I have found is when you do put that in place early and you get everyone aligned early and you start to have indicators of success or gaps, you're able to move your business forward and scale and deliver this wow customer experience, from early on. So you don't have to backtrack a lot and fix things. You could sort of build it right as you go.
Yeah, that's interesting. I want to spend a couple minutes as we're getting closer to wrapping up, but just to give a chance to talk a little bit about what you are doing over at, Involve AI, and like what you guys do and how you service your clients, so that the audience can kind of understand like where your mindset is and kind of and how that involves.
No pun intended.
Yeah.
Yeah. So one of the things as a leader of a function and like running all of post-sale, one of the challenges I've always had is, okay, even if I have budget for the right resources, it doesn't help to have a super high touch model for every customer ongoing, because you're never going to get the funding to exponentially grow, your team. You'd be 1,000 CSMs to like 20 salespeople over time, right? Which, by the way, would be awesome, but not feasible. And no matter how much technology or like operational structure you put in, there's this lack of opportunity to capture the whole story and to be able to stand in front of like your board and say, this is what's driving customer health. And this isn't, because like we chatted about a little bit ago, a lot of it is sort of gut or guesswork. And that's really what Involve is trying to take out of the mix, is that gut feel and give leaders the total view of their customers to understand like what of your products and services, are actually making an impact, and how, what part of the journey, what type of, cohort of customers, does your onboarding process work for? Maybe you need to adjust it for others. What does the ongoing journey look like? What should the sales messaging be for the various customers to make sure the expectations are set appropriately at the beginning? And so these are all insights that can be gained from the data that you already have, right? And so if we're able to take all of that historical data, feed it in, run it through our AI models, our patented AI models, and tell the story. These are the nuances across your successful customers, those that have expanded and stayed with you. And these are, the levers or the pieces of failure, if you will, for the customers that have left you. Now you can start to train those models and put in place the predictability. And we know that if for a certain product, if a customer doesn't adapt by 80% after 60 days, the likelihood of churn grows by like 80%. And so those are that's one piece. But now, what do you do with those insights? And so that's the next piece of what we've built, is the AI models are actually feeding back to CSMs or account managers or sales folks, on top of here's the insight, here's what you need to do about it, right? So we have only gained 50% adoption on this product through onboarding so far. Here are the things, training programs, here are the resources, here, you need to talk to the exec sponsor. And so it's actually giving them the actions that have been proven to be successful to help those customers. So that's what we're working on.
Good. I've heard this a couple times, and I can't remember if we've mentioned it on this podcast, but people have said that data, so all the data you have on your customers, on your employees, on your organization, is like the new oil. But a lot of people have access to that data. They're just not doing anything with the data. So it's like they're sitting on all these actionable things, and there's so much value and worth in that. And we all know that time kills data. So the older and the more stale the information, the less valuable it is. So having a tool set or having AI or having a framework in which you can pass that information to the people who can take action in your business on the customer experience is just absolutely priceless. So very cool what you guys are doing. I know we're running short on time, so I'll wrap it up with one more fun question. And we always like to ask this because we're all consumers of brands and products and tools out there in the world. You don't have to say the brand or anything like that, but tell us an example of a time that you had a good customer experience, recently in the last year or so, And what was that experience? And if you can't think of one off the top of your head, I'm sure Alex and I can kind of throw one in there.
Yeah, I actually have. I have a great example. It was really a surprising experience in a good way. So my husband and I had ordered some furniture. We ordered it, through a catalog. What we didn't know is it was no return policy. The providers are all different people or all different manufacturers in this catalog. And so we got the furniture and it was horrible. It was put together, it was shabby, it didn't look at all like we had ordered. And so of course, I'm ready to be told, nothing we can do. So I called the support line. They blew me away. So polite, used my first name and said, I'm so sorry that this must be a horrible feeling to get, your furniture you're excited about. And it's terrible. And she said, can you take some pictures? And anyway, long story short, she was able to do the return for me. And then they stopped doing work with that manufacturer. And they sent people to pick up the furniture. So we didn't have to go do anything, gave us a full refund. It blew me away from a customer service perspective because I was expecting, no refunds, nothing we can do. Certainly if they would refund it, I'd have to take the furniture somewhere. And they took care of all of that. It was a really amazing experience.
Yeah. The best is when your expectation is so low and they just blow it out of the water with where you don't even expect it. And you'll talk about it all the time because they did what's right. And that's ultimately what it comes down to, right? They had empathy on the phone. They heard your pain and they're like, well, how could I say no to Mary Poppen? So.
And I've referred many, many, many people, to them. So
good.
It worked.
Good. That's great. Well, Mary, it was good having you. Thank you so much for jumping on again to help us with our little technological snafu that I did on my part. But it was great having you on, and we get to celebrate the holidays here coming up, and looking forward to a 2022 and seeing just how this industry changes and evolves. And it's great to have you at the helm. And thanks for coming on.
Thank you guys so much. Great to see you. Happy holidays.
Happy holidays.
Yeah, thank you, Mary, so much for joining. And Alex, pleasure as always. And for all the viewers, thanks for taking time to listen to our podcast.
All right. Take care, everybody. Well, that wraps up the show for today. Thanks for joining. And don't forget to join us next week as we bring another guest in to talk about the trends around cloud contact center and customer experience. Also, you can find us at adleradvisors.com, LinkedIn, or your favorite podcast platform. We'll see you next week on another Cloud Podcast.